Hello, everybody, and welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you so much for clicking by. So, we are all about wine education here at Wine with Jimmy. So, if you are just wanting to know a little bit more or you are studying the world of wine, you will find these presentations hopefully very useful. I follow key text and key syllabus of major wine qualifications and certifications. So, they are very accurate and you'll find them useful for your studies. I'm doing videos on key grape varieties as per the WSET Level 3. So that is at that level of standard where you'll find the information you need on really a lot of grape varieties, some of them key, some of them more auxiliary varieties. Here we're looking at a fairly key variety, which is Zinfandel, otherwise known as Primitivo. Now, I put some of my content up on YouTube as free content, but there is huge amounts of exclusive content over at my e-learning platform. That's over at www.winewithjimmy.com, and you'll be able to find and navigate your way to my e-learning platform. Make sure you subscribe and you get lots of extra access, lots of extra goodies. Now, if you do have a question or a comment during this video, please do pop it in the comments section below. What are your thoughts on Zinfandel? Did you at university, potentially, when you were a little bit younger, drink a lot of white Zinfandel? Have you moved on to the reds today? Or do you prefer Primitivo, where it comes from in southern Italy in terms of Puglia? Please do get in touch. Make sure you click like and subscribe. So, as always, we talk about the key characteristics, and then we'll talk about the key aromas and flavors, and then the location where we find these grape varieties. First of all, then, Zinfandel's key characteristics. So, I'm going to do Zinfandel first here, and then I'll refer to Primitivo a little bit later. Zinfandel is regarded as California's own grape variety, and it is made in a range of styles, despite the fact that it has been proven that it's actually Croatian in origin, moving then to Italy and then across the world. But it really is somewhat of a regional speciality for the Californians. It does have a tendency to ripen unevenly, with the consequence that the harvested fruit can sometimes include both raisined fruit and underripe grapes. So you see that I've depicted this on your slide. You have a bunch of Zinfandel there on the left, which says uneven ripening below. You'll see you've got some berries which are certainly racing along in their ripeness and some that are very underripe. Now, what happens is some of the underripe fruit, if it is utilized in the wine, can lead to more herbaceous aromas and flavors. Potentially, that's wanted. Maybe it is not. And the raisioning of grapes, you see I've got some grapes here that have raisined. Now, these will lead to more concentrated grapes, less water, leading to full body, more sugar, so high alcohol, and the potential for residual sugar. There are some commercial red Zinfandels out there with some residual sugar. Typically, they would be slightly off dry. So, red Zinfandel will typically have sort of balanced acidity. You'll see my chart to give you a visual depiction on the right-hand side. Now, most of these are out of 5. That goes light, medium minus, medium, medium plus, high or full. So in the middle here with 3 green squares means that it's medium acidity. Medium plus tannins, they tend to be quite ripe, and that's due to the skin to juice ratio. There's a lot of skins, certainly with those raisined berries. The body tends to be full due to the lack of water, and the alcohol also quite high. Okay, what kind of aromas and flavors should we expect? Well, flavors include red and black fruits, dried berries, and a touch of licorice. And some can certainly display a little bit of herbaceous from those underripe grapes. I've also included a pot of strawberry jam here. So in some instances, they can be quite sweet and jammy Zinfandels. But it really depends on its location and its climate, its geology, in terms of what shapes the fruit profile. So some might have lovely, bright, fresh red fruits. Some might err more towards the darker fruits, certainly if they are from more raisined berries as well. Now, we must talk about white Zinfandel if we are talking about Zinfandel. There are large volumes of pink Zinfandel made from early picked grapes. So these wines are commonly referred to as white Zinfandel. You have an original bottling there of Sutter Home, one of the first, if not the first, to produce a white Zinfandel. These wines are typically fruity, pale to medium in color, medium sweet, and low in alcohol. They are made by stopping the fermentation early, either by filtering out the yeast or adding a dose of sulfur dioxide, or both. So typically you'll have early picked grapes. They will then be crushed. There will be some skin contact to give the pink color. Then it will be separated from its skins. It will begin to ferment, and then the fermentation will be stopped early by filtration and or sulfur dioxide. This means that it leaves a lower alcohol product with sugar left in the bottle, residual sugar. And that's what I'm depicting on the right-hand side. So typically these are medium sweet. You see 4 green squares out of 5. Typically the acidity is either medium or medium plus, somewhere around that area. And that's typically because you've got some of those early picked, more higher acid grapes, and it balances quite well with the sugar. Low tannin, low body, low alcohol in style. Very different to our chart that we had up for red Zinfandel previously. Okay, we're now going to talk about where we find key red Zinfandel, premium Zinfandel, and at the end, I will identify where we find most of the white Zinfandel being produced. Let's talk about the key location to begin with. Of course, we are looking at the Golden State of California, called such because of the gold rush that happened here in the mid-19th century, the Golden Gate Bridge, and of course, its flower of the state, the golden poppy. So we are firmly in this major state. It's by far the largest state producing wine. And we're going to begin by looking at California's north coast, specifically Napa County, and within that, Napa Valley. Okay, Napa Valley is an AVA, an American viticultural area, with lots of AVAs within it, what we call nested or sub-AVAs. That's all the colourful parts there on your map on the right-hand side. But we're going to be broadly discussing Napa Valley and then a few specific parts for Zinfandel. So in the north of Napa Valley, you find St. Helena and Calistoga AVAs. So that's basically where you are in this greenish area and then a dark red towards that sort of northern section. These receive the warmest daytime temperatures and can produce some of the most full-bodied, concentrated wines in the valley. But there is certainly some respite, as there is some cool air that comes from the Chalk Hill Gap up here, where Calistoga has a border with Sonoma County. And that Chalk Hill Gap is in the Mayacamas Mountains, and it can provide some relief against the oppressive afternoon temperatures. And it gives you nice cooling effects at night as well. Of course, Cabernet Sauvignon is the key player in Napa, and certainly here in Calistoga and St. Helena, but Zinfandel is also an up-and-coming key player. Many of the vineyards on the valley sides lie above the fog layer, so that's going into either the Mayacamas Mountains, which sit to the west, or the Vaca Mountains, which sit to the east. And now, because they're at altitude, they sit above the fog layer. They're cooled by altitude, but the aspect is important here because they do get very good UV light being above the fog line. And the west-facing vineyards, such as Howell Mountain in dark blue at the top of your map, and then Atlas Peak, which is very small, and it's there in yellow towards the eastern section, they get full exposure to the afternoon hot sun. So therefore, they tend to be much warmer than those facing east on the other side found in the Maya Camus Mountains, such as Mount Verdir, Diamond Mountain, and Spring Mountain. They're all located here on this far westerly side facing east. So you'll find fuller bodied wines and higher alcohol levels in places like Howell Mountain and Atlas Peak. Overall, the red wines on the valley sides will have bigger tannins, and they'll have more freshness from altitude, but riper tannins from the UV light. Cabernet Sauvignon, of course, leads, but Zinfandel is very important depending on the location. And you have a bottle there of Grigich Hills Estate, Napa Valley Zinfandel. Now, the county that sits to the west of Napa, and therefore on the Pacific, is Sonoma County. And within Sonoma County, there are many nested AVAs as well. One important one is Dry Creek Valley AVA, which is kind of in this slime green color here in the sort of middle north part of Sonoma County. Vines are found on the hillsides and the valley floor. The hillsides are certainly most important for Zinfandel. They're above the fog layer, and you have many old vine Zinfandels where they're able to ripen fully due to the intense UV light. So very exceptional. Here you'll see Ridge, East Bench Zinfandel, and you'll see the AVAs listed there, Dry Creek Valley at the bottom left of the label. Now, towards the south of Sonoma County, heading towards San Pablo Bay and San Francisco, you find Sonoma Valley AVA. That runs parallel to Napa Valley AVA. It's cooled by breezes and fogs from the San Pablo Bay, and it's very well known for old vine Zinfandel. Now we go to the county that sits above Sonoma County. So therefore we had Napa, and then we had Sonoma, and sitting above Sonoma is Mendocino County. The large AVA here is what we call the Mendocino AVA. It's warm and it's dry and it's protected behind coastal hills that really are quite high, about up to 900 meters in altitude. So really you have a warming effect in the Mendocino AVA, producing full-bodied wines with soft but fairly evident tannins. And Zinfandel is in the list of popular varieties here. Here you'll see the Hess Select Mendocino Zinfandel. Now we're heading down to the south central coast, and we are looking at the area of Paso Robles. And Paso Robles here is in San Luis Obispo County. This is below Monterey, but above Santa Barbara. That collection of kind of orange, yellows, reds, and burgundies are all of the Paso Robles AVAs. So the whole area is known as an AVA Paso Robles. Now, this area is much warmer, mostly dry, making, once again, quite powerful and structured Zinfandels. Now we're going to jump up, actually, to the Central Valley. And this is where we find Lodi. So Lodi in the Central Valley is an area of extreme importance because it sits on the end of the delta. So we have two major rivers in the Central Valley, the Sacramento River, which comes down from the north, and the San Joaquin River that comes up from the south. They meet, the confluence makes the delta, which then runs out to the San Pablo Bay. At that meeting, that confluence, is where you find the Lodi AVA, which you see on the map on the right-hand side. So this is the Lodi AVA straddling both Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. And it's geographically in the Central Valley, but it's very different because it does have the cooling breezes that come up the delta. A lot of varieties are found here, but its absolute speciality is old vine Zinfandel. Here's the More Fry Ranch's Marianne's Vineyard in Lodi. You'll see some of these wonderful old gnarly bush vines, which can often be over 100 years old, making often really quite affordable, complex, powerful Zinfandels. Now, if you head down to the San Joaquin County and beyond into the Central Valley, there's more Zinfandel grown here, typically used for white Zinfandel. That's our pink or rosé Zinfandel, which has medium sweetness to it because of the way it's produced, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, so just to mention, I do have a separate video on Primitivo, but just to mention that Zinfandel is identical to Primitivo. So you will see that we are identifying just here the place in Italy where we find Primitivo. It is the heel of Italy, which we call Puglia. This is one of the most warmest and driest parts of Italy, where Primitivo has been grown for a longer period of time than Zinfandel in California. This means it's actually much more of a consistent ripener, not as uneven as Zinfandel. And the wines here do tend to be very concentrated with fairly ripe tannins and a softness to them. But they're very dark fruits. You can be quite bright, but sweet, jammy red fruits as well. So typically, the appellation would be called Puglia IGT, Indicazione Geografica Tipica, and you'll see there's a bottle there of that. But there are smaller DOCs and even DOCGs which craft some slightly higher quality expressions. So that brings me to a conclusion looking at the grape variety Zinfandel, and otherwise known as Primitivo. Now, just because this is the level 3, I am not going into what it's called in Croatia, where it's often called Tribabag, or even Kalernicek Kastalenski, I believe. But you can find that information out on other parts of my e-learning portal. If you do have any comments or questions, please do get in touch. Maybe you have been to these places, tried these wines. It would be great to hear from you. But until next time, I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now.